Hello and thanks for stopping by. This is Midnight Magic for the Atari 2600, made by Broderbund in 1982 according to the cartridge, but 1984 according to the graphics on screen, so I'm not sure which year is correct. I'm playing this game from a cartridge on a Retron 77. As an aside, I stand by my purchase on the Retron 77. This unit has been serving me really well. I have a large enough collection where I think I might need to actually think about buying a backup one of these days. This is an old school video pinball game, and I was actually really surprised to find this one for sale. I really only thought there was one pinball game for the Atari. That would be Video Pinball, which was one of the earlier videos I posted to the channel. This game makes 2 pinball titles for the Atari 2600, and as of this video, I'm unsure if there's a third. If there is, I've not stumbled on it yet. This plays like basic pinball as you'd expect. You pull back on the joystick to pull back on the plunger, and you press the fire button to launch the ball into play. You press left on the joystick to activate the left flippers on the table, and press right for the right flippers. If you pull back, it will trigger all the flippers at the same time. Now, get that ball in play and try to get as many points as possible. You can play this one with 1 or 2 players, and there are only 2 variations of the game. Basically 2 difficulty levels. If you set it to A, the center posts and kickers have to be activated while you play, by hitting the target with the arrow. The B difficult setting has the posts and kickers always turned on. This game handles pinball differently than the other game I reviewed, Video Pinball. Here, they have a larger table viewable for you on screen, although it is shrunk a little bit, and it's a little smaller to view. Also, we get 4 flippers instead of 2, which is nice. It's a larger pinball game, certainly, although the pinball you play with is still that good old classic Atari 2600 square. We don't get any sort of scrolling pinball table or anything like the more modern video pinball games we'd find, but I'm not complaining. This one seems reasonably well thought out for an Atari 2600 game. It does some pretty clever things for the Atari 2600, I think. They did it right. There's a spinner in the middle of the table, and I have to say, when you launch a pinball through it, it spins around like crazy. It's a good little effect. The colors for the game. I'm always a huge fan of colors. Yes, this is just a pinball table outline on a black background, but the colors of the table change as you play. Awesome. The other game was so static it became dull to look at after a while, but here they put some thought into it. It doesn't have a background image on the table or anything like you'd find in more modern pinball games, but it has the bare bones you'd expect for the older classic tables, I think. If you plug the game in and wait, the game will autoplay for you. Some Atari games do this, yeah, but not all. It's always nice to have this feature, I think, as it lets you view and understand the game a little bit before you play it. I'm a fan of this. If you press the reset button, that starts the game, and you get a classic little starting jingle. You also get a shave and a haircut jingle when you lose your last ball. Music in an Atari game to any level is always good for me. We don't get a lot in most games, so any little thing they can do to break up the monotony, I'm all for it. Now, pull back on the plunger and press the fire button to launch a pinball into play. The plunger here has these little protrusions on it on the left and right. As you pull it back, you can use them as a guide, help you determine how far back you want to pull it and how powerful you want your shot to be. This game also has enough space in it so the pinball can flow a little. If you've ever played pinball actually in an arcade, there are certain ramps and paths that you're trying to hit, and when you get your ball along that path, it sort of loops around, picks up speed. We actually get a little bit of that here. We didn't really get anything even close to that for video pinball. I mean, I was okay with that other game, but here, this one moves closer to trying to recreate an actual pinball table. The bumpers also have some different colored adornments on them, and at certain times, some small colored lights will actually flash across parts of the table. Now, this is by no means anything fancy, of course, but these little color additions followed by sounds of the game being played make this one okay. The sounds are fine here, although they're not what you'd expect from a pinball game, I think, not by modern sensibilities anyway. This is the Atari 2600, however, so I know we have limits. This is why most of the sounds are kind of abrupt and limited. To me, honestly, these sounds seem like they would be more at home in like an outer space fighting game of some sort. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Still, overall, I think this is a reasonable pinball game. It certainly doesn't have any of the flashy graphics you're going to find on more modern consoles and tables, but for an Atari game from the early 80s, I think this one has succeeded in what it set out to do. We got a simple pinball game on the Atari 2600. Now let's get started and try to rack up points. Well, that's all I have for Midnight Magic for the Atari 2600. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you next time.